I love natural bodybuilding.
It's a means of practicing self-control and discipline, pushing your limits, channeling your energy into something positive, and growing both in body and in mind. And there's something that's just special about seeing your hard, consistent work physically manifest itself on your body through muscle growth and or fat loss.
That being so, there are some very important things about prepping for natural bodybuilding competitions that aren't talked about nearly enough.
I'm talking about 5 serious challenges in particular that, to some degree, almost every prepping natural bodybuilder will experience to some extent during a prep. And the fact that these challenges aren't talked about enough is, well, problematic. The lack of awareness around them, or even the misconceptions about them, can lead athletes to feel things like frustration, disappointment, and unnecessary suffering, among other things.
Those challenges come from a combination of what I've learned from my own personal experiences and more recently from the conversations I've had with other natural bodybuilders about their own stories and experiences as well.
In this video, I'm going to share these 5 challenges with you in hopes that in doing so, it might prepare you to overcome them and thereby leave you to experience more joy and fulfillment from the adventure that is a natural bodybuilding competition prep. I want to warn you that these 5 possible challenges that come with the sport are intense, and that in vocalizing them, they might sound a bit startling. But I think that that's all the more reason to get them all out in the open so that there are no surprises for you in your journey.
And instead of being startled by them, you can brace yourself and prepare for them as they are part of the challenge.
Here's the first one, and it's big. When in a prep, particularly when you get deeper and deeper into it, one of the greatest challenges you'll likely experience is balancing your prep with the rest of your life.
I'm talking about your family. I'm talking about your friends, your work, your other responsibilities.
On paper, being deep into a prep might not seem to be that much of a challenge as far as balance goes. You'll technically be doing the same things as when you aren't prepping or when you're in the earlier stages of a prep. You eat with good structure, you get your steps in, train hard, and so on. But what you don't see on paper is the extra lethargy, hunger, and mental and emotional stress that accumulates. In short, being super dieted will wear you down in ways that you won't really know how to fully anticipate until you feel it. If you've ever prepped before, you know what I'm talking about. I know that for myself, this has also been one of the biggest struggles I've faced when prepping, if not the single biggest one. I would find it hard to step outside of my regular prep routine to visit with friends and family as I get deeper into any prep, really. And things like eating out, any kind of social meal, going to restaurants would almost always give me at least a little bit of anxiety.
Something that I've learned from Jeff Alberts is that one of the best and most important things you can do is to keep your priorities in check. Yes, the bodybuilding prep is important, but your family is more important. And your work is more important too.
So keeping that all in mind, to have the best experience both for you and everyone around you, it's best to structure your prep in alignment with that. It is hard though. Here's the second challenge.
Being in a natural bodybuilding prep might lead you to unwittingly experience envy. This is another one I've experienced myself.
My third natural bodybuilding prep back in 2021 was particularly tough for this reason. I remember spending hours scrolling through social media and browsing the photos and videos of other natural bodybuilders, some of which whom I knew were competing in the same season as me. I would often look at their physiques and think to myself,
I wish I looked more like that. I wish that my delts popped out more like that guy's. I wish that my arms were as big and round as his. I wish that I was leaner and more conditioned like this guy. And you know what the result of that kind of thinking was? Well, it left me feeling pretty darn miserable. I'll tell you that.
It took out a lot of the joy and fulfillment I could have experienced from that prep. You know the saying, comparison is the thief of joy? Well, I can attest that it's true. Here's the thing with natural bodybuilding. We all have different genetics. We all are in different stages of our lifting journeys. We have different ways of thinking. We're different people. So naturally, envying the physique of someone else isn't going to lead anywhere good.
That isn't to say that you can't look to others in hopes of learning from them. I think that that's great. In fact, I think that's one of the best ways of learning. That's why I always have a natural bodybuilding coach myself.
Anyhow, instead of being envious about the physiques of others, I've learned that it's infinitely more helpful to be open to allowing yourself to feel grateful of your own unique physique progress. Here's challenge number 3.
Chances are your natural bodybuilding prep won't be as glamorous or as exciting as the other natural bodybuilders that you're seeing prepping on social media.
Here's challenge number 3. Natural bodybuilding preps are often made out to be this glorious grinding process of perseverance and grit. And while they are those things, they're often exaggerated to look a little bit more dramatic than they are in reality. It's kind of like Indiana Jones and archaeology. Indiana Jones makes being an archaeologist look like some absolutely ridiculous adrenaline-fueled adventure, fighting bad guys, saving damsels in distress, and seeking out magic treasure.
Don't get me wrong. Archaeology is legitimately awesome. Doing things like unearth the ruins of ancient civilizations or study the remains of their tools or belongings is pretty darn cool. But from what I've learned, the real thing isn't really anything like what Indiana Jones makes it out to be.
Saying this, I don't want to downplay natural bodybuilding. I personally love the process, the training, the healthy eating, and the overall lifestyle. That being so, it's helpful to know that it's not as glamorous as it might look from your favorite social media influencers. The 4th challenge.
Dieting as a natural bodybuilder can lead to some very difficult and even surprising mental and emotional challenges. This is especially true for the competitive natural bodybuilders who diet to their absolute limits with the intention of reaching an elite level of conditioning when they get on stage.
If you've dieted hard before, then you might have a pretty good idea of what I'm about to tell you. But if you haven't pushed your fat loss dieting to your limits, then this might come as a bit of a surprise. To be stage ready means, in essence, to get as close to the point of having zero visible body fat as possible. That place is hard to get to, and once there, it's pretty uncomfortable to sustain. The body doesn't want to be there.
And as such, you'll likely feel things mentally and emotionally in a way that's vastly different than if your body fat percentage were higher and you were more well-fed.
I'm talking about things like heightened irritability, sadness, anxiety, a hypersensitivity to stress, an odd food focus, which I would say is different than the sensation of hunger, and even an increased level of self-centeredness. From my understanding, those feelings all come from a place of physical scarcity. When the body is super low on fat stores, the mind reacts with those negative emotions as a means of encouraging you to go get some food in your system. Honestly, they aren't fun feelings. Here's my take on them, though.
They are part of the journey, one of the major challenges that you'll experience. And if you really get after it, you can learn how to control those feelings. And by learning how to control those feelings, you can become more of a master of yourself.
Yep. It's a lot easier said than done, and I'm certainly a work in progress in that department. Here's challenge number 5.
In addition to dieting as a natural bodybuilder leading to some difficult and surprising mental and emotional challenges, it can lead to some difficult and surprising physical challenges as well. I've heard some crazy stories with other natural bodybuilders that I've spoken with. Funny enough, crazy stories in this regard seem to be much more common than I had once thought.
In cases of extreme prep dieting, things like edema or excess very visible water retention can happen. As to the exact mechanism why that happens to some people, it might have something to do with experiencing heightened mental and or physical stress. Edema can make the body look fatter than it actually is, and in turn lead to some mind games along the way.
In extreme cases, this can be dangerous too. So if you ever find yourself experiencing it, I would take it very seriously.
Digestive issues are another one that's common. Depending on the instance, it might come from something like trying to overfill your stomach with too many low-calorie dense foods at once. I'm talking something like extremely high volumes of vegetables to the point of taking in a difficult to digest amount of fiber and overall food bulk. Or overdoing it with things like almost 0-calorie sauces like mustard, or almost 0-calorie diet foods like Walden Farm syrups to massively spike things up like sodium levels or other not so fun to digest dietary ingredients. And other times, it might have something to do with experiencing mental or emotional stress that manifests itself in the body.
You might be wondering just what kind of digestive issues we're talking about here. Well, let me tell you, it's not just heartburn.
It's the real fun ones like excess bloating, constipation, or diarrhea. Good times. All of the above can have an effect on your physical appearance too, which is tough to see happen when you're prepping for a physique sport where you're judged on how you look. Being excessively bloated or constipated, for example, might lead to a temporarily distended midsection, making your waist look, in some cases, significantly larger than usual. And all three, bloating, constipation, and diarrhea, can lead to extra water retention or edema, leaving you looking softer or fatter than if otherwise.
The body is a strange thing. I won't pretend to know why it does what it does, just that it's probably helpful to be aware of what can happen. Here's what I found helps me the most when I'm dieting to get on stage. I consume the upper end of a healthy fiber intake without it getting too high, despite getting hungry and hungrier. I greatly limit the amount of low-calorie sauces or diet foods I eat to keep my sodium from getting too high or to keep myself from other digestive issues from taking in those fun dietary ingredients like xanthan gum. I keep my overall food volumes from getting too high to avoid extra food bulk in my gut to prevent possible bloating, constipation, or diarrhea. I drink the amount of water that leaves me feeling the most comfortable throughout the day and usually limit myself to just one diet soda per day to avoid excess bloating from the carbonation. And I stick with foods that I know digest well. I don't change foods very often. That's done the trick for me. But even so, the leaner I get throughout the dieting process, the more my digestive tract seems to slow down. That seems to be a pretty common experience for dieting natural bodybuilders. And those are the 5 serious challenges that can happen in a natural bodybuilding prep that aren't talked about nearly enough. My intention in sharing them with you is not to scare you away from doing a show. Rather, it's to help prepare you for what's coming so that you have the smoothest and best experience possible. And for the veteran natural bodybuilders watching, it's to give you some relatability and for you to know that if you've experienced any of those challenges, there's nothing wrong with you and you're not alone. At this point, I'd love to know what you think. What are your experiences with those challenges? Am I missing any big ones? Let me know in the comments. Just before we close the video, I want to let you know about the Natural Bodybuilding Society on Discord. It's a community I created exclusively for natural bodybuilders to connect, find relatability, ask questions, learn from each other, support each other, and make friends. If you're a natural bodybuilder watching, you should join. I've included a link in the description below for you to do so. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.